Rain hammered the truck as I slid onto his lap, his fingers slipping beneath my blouse, fumbling with my jeans. My stepson's breath warmed my neck, his low moan resonating as I leaned in too near. Then a sharp snap outside broke the moment. Who was out there? The air in the house that summer night was thick, humid, sticking to my skin like a second layer. Outside, crickets chirped in an endless loop, their sound creeping through the frayed window screens. I wandered the creaky hardwood of my bedroom, barefoot, the old boards sighing under my weight like they were weary of my pacing. Tom was out again, another late night at the shop, wrenching on someone's broken car while ours gathered dust. At 42, I'd grown accustomed to the quiet, but tonight it cut deeper, stirring something restless I couldn't pin down. I paused at the dresser, its chipped veneer rough under my fingertips, and rummaged in the bottom drawer. There it was, my hidden comfort, a small, sleek device, cool to the touch, with a soft buzz when it worked. Lately, it had been my solace on sleepless nights when the house felt too vast, but now it lay lifeless in my palm, its batteries drained, the hum I needed replaced by a frustrating silence. I pried at the compartment, fingers unsteady, muttering under my breath as it refused to budge. "Come on, you stubborn," I growled, irritation flaring hotter than the sticky air. The front door banged shut downstairs, startling me upright. I shoved the device under my pillow, a flush creeping up my neck as if I'd been caught. Heavy footsteps climbed the stairs, Dylan, my stepson, back from trade school. He was 20 now, all lean strength and quiet intensity, a far cry from the lanky teen who'd scowled through my marriage to Tom 6 years ago. "Tough night, Claire?" His voice called, that lazy drawl piercing the stillness. I tucked my hair behind my ear, flustered, and replied, something like that. My pulse stuttered foolish. He knew nothing, but a prickle lingered on my skin. He didn't stay downstairs. The steps groaned as he climbed, and soon he stood in my doorway, toolbox dangling from one hand, dark hair tousled from the day. Grease stained his jeans, and his damp gray shirt clung to him in the heat, tracing a frame that had long outgrown boyhood. "Heard you muttering," he said, leaning against the doorframe, hazel eyes meeting mine with a spark of interest. "What's busted now?" I swallowed, throat dry, and hesitated. He'd fixed plenty around here, dripping pipes, a flickering light Tom neglected. But this? My mind raced for an excuse, but my hands moved on their own, retrieving the device from under the pillow. "It's just this thing," I said, holding it out like it was trivial, a peculiar gadget I couldn't quite explain. "Batteries are stuck." His eyebrow arched, a faint grin tugging his mouth as he stepped closer, setting the toolbox down with a quiet clunk. "Let's take a look." I passed it to him, our fingers brushing warm, rough, and a jolt shot through me, sharp and unexpected. He examined it with a mechanic's precision, his thumb grazing the edge. "Odd little device," he said, voice low, teasing but not probing. "What's it do when it's alive?" My face warmed. "Just makes a sound," I said, gesturing vaguely, dodging details. "Keeps me company." He looked up, eyes holding mine a moment too long, and something shifted, a flicker, a question he didn't voice. "Sure," he said, freeing the compartment with a quick twist of his pocket knife. "Got spares?" I dug through the drawer, pulling out a pair of AAs, and handed them over, our fingers brushing again. He popped them in, deft and sure, then pressed the button. A steady, low hum filled the room, vibrating the air between us. "Done," he said, passing it back, his grin casual but tinged with something unspoken. My hands trembled as I took it, the buzz tingling through me. "Thanks," I said, voice faint, and he stayed, toolbox at his feet, watching me. "Works okay now?" he asked, quieter, like he was testing something beyond the device. I nodded too quickly and switched it off, the silence roaring back. "Yeah, great," I said, forcing a chuckle. He lingered a moment, then nodded. grabbed his tools, and stepped away. "Night, Claire," he said, vanishing down the hall, leaving me gripping the humming device, my heart racing like I'd narrowly escaped or stumbled into something dangerous. Morning light cut through the blinds, harsh and bright, striping the tangled quilt I'd wrestled all night. I lay there, the device on my nightstand, its hum a phantom in my ears though it was still. Sleep had slipped away, leaving me raw, every creak of the house echoing Dylan's voice, his touch on my fingers. I told myself it was nothing, just a late-night fix, a kid lending a hand, but my skin tingled like it knew better. Downstairs, the clink of dishes pulled me up. Tom was back, rattling around the kitchen, his gruff complaints about a late toe job floating up. I pulled on a robe, the fabric clinging in the lingering heat, and headed down. Tom stood at the sink, scrubbing a mug, his broad shoulders slumped like the shop's weight pressed on him. "Morning," I said, voice rough, grabbing coffee to steady myself. He grunted, barely glancing over. "Truck broke down on Route 7. Kept me up." His words were flat, familiar, another brick in the wall between us. I nodded, sipping the bitter coffee, my eyes flicking to the stairs. No Dylan yet. Good. I needed space to bury last night deep. Then he appeared, boots scuffing the steps, hair damp from a shower. He'd traded the greasy shirt for a clean one, but the way it fit his shoulders caught me off guard. "Hey," he said, tossing a nod at Tom before snagging an apple from the counter. His hazel eyes flicked to me brief, sharp, and my stomach twisted. "Sleep all right, Claire?" he asked, biting into the fruit, his tone too easy, like he was nudging something. I coughed, covering with my mug. "Fine," I lied, turning to rinse it, the cold water sharp on my wrists. Tom didn't notice, lost in his scrubbing. Dylan lingered, leaning against the counter, his presence a warmth I couldn't shake. "Got a project today," he said, almost to himself. "Old stereo at school, keeps dropping signal." He chewed slow, and I caught myself staring his jaw, the line of his throat. I looked away, guilt clawing me. "Sounds interesting," I mumbled, drying my hands, needing to move. He grinned, subtle but there, and headed out, toolbox clattering as the screen door snapped shut. Tom didn't look up. I exhaled, unsteady, the kitchen suddenly too tight. The day crawled, humid and sluggish. I kept busy, laundry, sweeping, anything to stop my hands from shaking, but my thoughts looped back. That hum, his grin, the way he'd stood too near. By noon, Tom was gone again, off to barter for parts, leaving the house to me and the echo of last night. I was sorting clothes in the living room, the TV droning some talk show, when the phone rang. I grabbed it, expecting Tom's grumble about a delay, but the voice was crisp, unfamiliar. "Mrs. Hargrove." A pause, then, "Officer Reed here. Got an issue with your stepson." My heart sank, a shirt slipping from my hands. "Dylan." "What's wrong?" the line hissed, Reed's tone brisk. "Caught him taking scrap from a junkyard, claims it's for a school project, but the owner wants charges. Need you here." I stammered agreement, the room tilting, and hung up. Dylan in trouble. He'd always been reliable, Tom's apprentice, not a crook. I snatched my keys, pulse pounding, last night's hum swallowed by a new buzz, fear, cold and sharp. The station was a grim concrete block, all flickering lights and stale air. Dylan sat on a bench, head bowed, wrists cuffed like a common thief. Officer Reed, lean, with a shaved head, waved me over. "Says he was just borrowing for that stereo. Kid's got a tail." Dylan looked up, eyes meeting mine, a flash of regret but no panic. "Claire, he began, but Reed cut in. "Quiet. Your stepmom's here, so you're lucky." I flinched, I wasn't his mom, but nodded, signing forms, my hand shaky. "He's not a thief," I said firm, though my voice wavered. Reed shrugged, uncuffing him. "Keep him straight." We drove home in silence, the truck's rumble filling the void. I gripped the wheel, stealing glances. He slouched, staring out, jaw set. What were you thinking, Dylan? I finally snapped, pulling into the drive. He turned, eyes steady. Needed parts. Thought it was junk. His voice was low, defensive, but unapologetic. You could have asked, I said, softer, my anger fading. He smirked, faint. Didn't want to trouble you. You've got enough. My breath hitched. Did he mean last night? Before I could press, he climbed out, leaving me with the keys, the air heavy with secrets humming louder. The gravel crunched as I cut the engine, the house dark and quiet against the gray sky. Dylan was already at the porch, his stride long, toolbox swinging like the station hadn't happened. I lingered in the truck, hands on the wheel, the sound of cuffs unlocking still rattling in my head. He'd shrugged it off, scrap, a mistake, but it weighed on me, heavy as the damp air. I got out, the scent of wet grass sharp, and followed him inside, my pulse a steady drum I couldn't hush. He flopped onto the couch, boots thudding on the coffee table, the sound sharp in the stillness. I stood by the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, trying to read him. You telling Tom? He asked, eyes on his jeans, fingers tugging a loose thread. His voice was calm, but there was a crack, something vulnerable. I sighed, leaning against the frame. Should I? You're the one who almost got arrested over a stereo. He grinned, slight, eyes flicking to me. Not just a stereo. It's for the shop class demo. Wanted it to sound right. My breath caught sound. That word, tying last night to now, a knot I couldn't untie. I turned to the sink, running water over plates that were already clean. Ask next time, I said, sharper than intended, the cold water grounding me. He didn't respond, just watched, his silence louder than the tap. Then he stood, crossing to the counter, his shoulder grazing mine as he reached for a glass. Didn't think you'd worry this much, he said, low, the contact warm, intentional. I fumbled the dishcloth, water dripping down my arm. Your family, I said, avoiding his eyes. Of course I worry. He filled the glass, the gurgle loud, and sipped slow, his gaze fixed on me. Family, huh? The way he said it, soft, pointed, twisted my stomach. I dried my hands, needing space, but he stayed close, the scent of his soap sharp from his morning shower. Claire, he began, setting the glass down. Last night, the phone shrilled, cutting him off, a lifeline I grabbed. Claire, it's Pam from the shop, came the tense voice, Tom's coworker. He's in the ER. Truck flipped, drunk driver hit him. He's okay, just roughed up, but come quick. The world tilted, the phone slick in my hand. I'm coming, I said, hanging up, panic and guilt swirling. Dylan was up, eyes wide. What's wrong? I spilled it. Tom, hospital now, and he grabbed his keys before I finished. I'm driving, he said, no debate. We piled into his old pickup, the cab smelling of grease and leather, and he gunned it, the engine roaring as we sped through back roads. My hands shook, twisting in my lap, Tom's face flashing, gruff, distant, but mine. Dylan glanced over, jaw tight. He's strong, he'll pull through. I nodded, wanting to believe, but fear coiled cold in my chest. The ER was a blur, beeping monitors, sharp voices, the bite of disinfectant. Tom sat in Tample. System, on a gurney, arm in a sling, a stitched cut above his eyebrow, his face pale but stubborn. Idiot swerved into me, he growled as I hurried over, his hand rough in mine. I'm fine, Claire. Just bruised. Relief washed over me, but it tangled with something else, frustration, or the weight of years stacking up. Dylan stood back, arms folded, watching us with that quiet intensity from last night. Glad you're here, Tom said to him, gruff but kind. Get her home, yeah. I'll be out soon. The drive back was heavy, the sunset bleeding red through the rain. I leaned against the window, exhaustion creeping in. Thanks, I said quietly, voice small. Dylan's grip tightened on the wheel. Always. He didn't push, didn't mention last night, but the air hummed with unspoken words. At home, I sank onto the couch, the device upstairs a silent witness to the mess. Dylan lingered, keys clinking on the table. "Need anything?" he asked, soft, his shadow long across the floor. I shook my head, but he stayed, sitting close, his knee grazing mine, the hum of secrets growing louder, tempting me to listen. The living room dimmed, the last rays of sunset fading through the curtains, casting soft reds over the couch where I sat, legs curled tight. Dylan's knee pressed against mine, a steady warmth that grounded me despite the chaos inside. Tom's stitched face flashed in my mind, gruff, alive, but so distant from the man I'd married. The device upstairs lingered in my thoughts, its hum louder with every breath, and Dylan's presence burned too real. "You holding up?" he asked, voice low, fingers drumming the armrest. I nodded, too tired to fake it well, and he shifted, his heat seeping through that small touch. "Rough day," I muttered, pressing my temples, the ache sharp. He didn't push, just watched, hazel eyes catching the faint light, deep and steady. "Yeah, Tom's lucky," he said, quieter, like it meant more than the crash. My throat tightened, guilt and relief twisting together. I should have stayed at the hospital, played the dutiful wife. But I'd fled home, and Dylan followed, and now the air thickened with something I couldn't escape. "He's back tomorrow," I said, more to myself, clinging to the idea. Dylan's jaw twitched, but he nodded, his arms stretching along the couch behind me, close but not touching. The silence stretched, tight and alive, until he broke it. "That thing upstairs," he said, casual but sharp. "You use it often." My breath caught, heat rushing my face. I turned, meeting his gaze, keen, curious, no tease now. "Dylan," I started, voice shaky. "It's just—" He leaned closer, cutting me off, his arm brushing my shoulder. "I'm not stupid, Claire, I know." My heart pounded, the room shrinking to just us, his words buzzing louder than anything. "It's not like that," I said, grasping at denial, but he grinned, faint, seeing through me. "Maybe, but you didn't send me away last night." I stood fast, the floor unsteady. "I need air," I said, stumbling to the porch, the screen door slamming. The night air was cool, crickets humming in the dark, but my skin burned, his words chasing me. He followed, inevitable, stepping out, hands in his pockets, shadow long under the porch light. "Claire," he said, softer, "I didn't mean to push." I turned raw. "Then what do you want, Dylan, to fix it all? To play savior?" My voice broke, and he stepped closer, boots scraping the wood. "No, just you." His eyes locked on mine, steady, and something in me cracked, desire, fear, a knot I couldn't untangle. He moved before I could think, closing the distance, his hand rising to my cheek, warm and careful. My breath hitched, but I didn't pull back, couldn't. His thumb grazed my skin, slow, and the world shrank to that touch, the crickets fading. "Tell me to stop," he murmured, voice rough, his face inches away. I opened my mouth, but no words came, because I didn't want him to. My hand found his chest, tentative, feeling the pulse beneath his shirt, and he leaned in, lips brushing mine, soft, testing. I froze, then melted, kissing him back, a soft gasp escaping as his arms wrapped around me, pulling me close. It was reckless, fierce, his heat searing me, and I pressed tighter, fingers gripping his shirt. Headlights cut the dark, Tom's truck, rumbling into the drive. We broke apart, breathless, my heart lurching as Dylan stepped back, eyes wide but calm. "He's early," I whispered, panic rising. Tom climbed out, sling loose, limping toward us. "Doc's let me go," he grunted, squinting at the porch. "What's this?" I stammered, just talking, wiping my lips fast, and Dylan nodded, smooth. "Checking on her after today." Tom grunted, pushing past, the door creaking as he went inside. Dylan's hand brushed mine quick, hidden, and he followed, leaving me trembling, his taste lingering. Inside, Tom crashed on the couch, snoring soon, the house settling around his noise. I crept upstairs, the device glinting on the nightstand, a witness to the chaos. I sank onto the bed, head spinning, Dylan's kiss replaying soft, then hungry, a line crossed in the dark. His footsteps paused outside my door, a shadow under the gap, and I held my breath, half wanting him to enter. He didn't, just stood, then moved on. I lay back, pulse racing, the hum of what we'd done louder than ever, daring me to chase it. Morning crept in slow, gray light pooling on the floor where I lay twisted in sheets. The device sat silent, its hum drowned by the echo of Dylan's lips, soft, then fierce. A taste I couldn't shake. Sleep had been a battle, my skin alive with him, the porch kiss looping until my chest ached. Downstairs, Tom's snores rumbled faintly, a reminder he was here, close, clueless. I rolled over, face in the pillow, but Dylan's shadow under my door lingered, a challenge I hadn't met. I pulled myself up, the air sticky despite the morning chill, and slipped into jeans and a loose shirt, hands unsteady. The mirror showed a wreck, hair wild, eyes too bright, guilt, and want battling in my face. At 42, I thought I knew myself, Claire, Tom's wife, steady. But last night shattered that, and Dylan's touch flooded in, messy and alive. I padded downstairs, the house creaking, and found Tom at the kitchen table, sling off, coffee steaming. "Docs say I'm good," he grunted, eyes down. "Work tomorrow." I nodded, pouring coffee, the bitter scent steadying me. "Good," I said, voice thin, glancing at the stairs. Dylan descended, boots soft, hair tousled like he'd barely slept. He grabbed toast, leaning against the counter, his gaze sliding to me, quick, warm, a secret woven in. "Morning," he said, casual, but the word landed heavy now, charged with what we'd done. Tom grunted back, lost in his mug, and I turned to the sink, water splashing cold on my wrists. "Plans today?" I asked, to no one, needing sound to dull the hum in my head. "Shop class," Dylan said, biting toast, voice low. "Got that stereo to finish." My breath snagged, stereo, hum, and his eyes flicked to me, a smirk tugging his lips. I looked away, cheeks burning, the sponge slipping. Tom left mid-morning, truck rattling off, and the house fell quiet, leaving me and Dylan in its restless grip. I was folding laundry in the living room, the TV muttering, when he wandered in, toolbox in hand. "Heading out soon," he said, but didn't move. Just watched, his presence a pull I couldn't resist. I kept my eyes on the clothes, folding slow, but my pulse jumped as he stepped closer, dropping the toolbox with a clank. "Claire," he said, voice rough, "about last night." I cut him off, sharp. "Don't." He paused, then nodded, but sat beside me, his thigh brushing mine. The air thickened, his warmth sinking in, and I fumbled a shirt, my hands unsteady. "We can't ignore it," he murmured, leaning in, his breath warm on my neck. My resolve frayed, and I turned, meeting his eyes hazel, burning. "Dylan," I whispered, half warning, but he didn't stop. His hand slid to my knee, firm, igniting me. "Say no," he said, echoing the porch, and I didn't want to. My hand found his chest, trembling, and he pulled me in, lips crashing to mine, hungrier now, no hesitation. I melted, fingers in his hair, a soft moan escaping as his hands roamed, waist, hips, pulling me closer until I straddled him, the couch creaking. It was feverish, reckless, his shirt pushed up, my hands on his skin, the hum drowning everything. His lips traced my jaw, neck, every touch a spark, and I pressed closer, lost in him. Then the phone rang, shrill, slicing through. I pulled back, breathless, Dylan's hands still on me as I grabbed it. "Hello," I gasped, voice shaky. "Claire, it's Pam," came the sharp reply, Tom's coworker. He left his meds at the shop, dropping them off now. My stomach dropped. "Pam here soon." "Thanks," I choked, hanging up, and Dylan tensed, reading me. "Who?" he asked low. "Pam, she's coming now." We sprang apart, me smoothing my shirt, him pulling his down, panic surging as tires crunched outside. The doorbell rang, and I rushed to answer, Dylan slipping upstairs, his steps silent. Pam stood there, rain damp, holding a pill bottle. Tom needs these, she said, smirking, her eyes flicking past me. All good, I nodded, too quick. Yeah, just cleaning. She handed it over, lingering, then left. I shut the door, heart pounding, Dylan's taste still on me. He reappeared, eyes dark, a grin breaking through. Close call, he said, stepping close, but I held up a hand, breathless. The kitchen was still, Pam's tires fading into the rain, but my pulse raced. Dylan stood near, his hand on my arm, his grin a spark that wouldn't fade. His taste, salt, heat lingered from the couch, where we'd nearly unraveled before her knock stopped us. We can't not here, I'd said, but the words felt weak under his steady gaze. He nodded, slow, his thumb brushing my skin, sending a shiver. Then where? He murmured, voice low, weaving into the hum in my chest. I stepped back, unsteady, gripping the sink, its cold edge sharp. The device upstairs flashed in my mind, its hum, his hands fixing it, the start of the storm. Dylan, this is, I started, but the words tangled, wrong, right, something else. He moved behind me, not touching, just close, his breath warm. Insane, he finished, soft, and I laughed, brittle, turning to him. Yeah, insane. His eyes held mine, unyielding, and my walls crumbled, a thread snapping. Come with me, he said, grabbing his keys, the jingle sharp in the quiet. We didn't talk, just climbed into his truck, the cab thick with oil and leather, rain blurring the windshield as he drove. I didn't ask where, didn't need to. The town faded, wet and gray, until he pulled into a deserted lot by the old factory, its rusted skeleton looming in the drizzle. He cut the engine, silence heavy, and turned to me, his hand finding mine. No one's here, he said, voice rough, pulling me across the seat. I went, heart pounding, and his lips met mine, slow, deliberate, tasting every moment. My hands slid up his chest, fingers curling into his damp shirt, and he groaned, pressing me against the door, the glass cold through my shirt. It was raw, private, his hands bolder, slipping under my blouse, tracing my spine as I arched into him. The rain drummed, a shield around us, and I lost myself, his lips on my jaw, neck, every touch a flame. I tugged his shirt up, palms on his warm skin, and he pulled me closer, my legs tangling with his in the cramped cab. Claire, he breathed, voice thick, his fingers grazing my jeans, hesitant but hungry. I nodded, breathless, urging him on, and he unbuttoned them slow, his touch searing. My head fell back, a gasp escaping, the truck's cab shrinking to just us, heat, need, our breaths fogging the glass. He shifted, pulling me onto his lap, the steering wheel pressing my back, but I didn't care, pressed closer, hands in his hair, kissing him deep. His shirt came off, tossed aside, and mine followed, the air cool on my skin as his hands roamed, waist, ribs, higher, mapping me with certainty. Sure, he murmured, lips by my ear, and I nodded, pulling him back, the rhythm urgent, wild. The rain muffled us, but my pulse roared, every move a spark, and I clung to him, the truck swaying faintly, a secret carved in the storm. It built fast, a rush that left me breathless, his groan muffled against my neck as he followed, collapsing against me. We stayed tangled, sweat mixing with the damp seeping through a cracked window, the air thick. His forehead rested on mine, his grin lazy, sated. Damn, Claire, he panted, a laugh bubbling up, and I smiled, shaky, my hands still on him. Yeah, I whispered, the hum settling into something warm, real. The world outside vanished, just us in this moment, the factory's shadow silent. Then a crack sharp, nearby, jerked us upright. Glass crunched under tires, not ours, and I froze, Dylan's arms tensing. What was that? He hissed, peering through the fogged windshield. A shadow darted quick, dark near the factory, then headlights flared, a car speeding off. My heart raced, adrenaline spiking as I pulled my shirt on, Dylan scrambling for his. Someone saw us, I whispered, panic clawing, and he grabbed my hand, steady despite the chaos. Or just passing by, he said, but his eyes narrowed, scanning the dark. We sat, breathless, the intimacy shattered by a cold edge. Whoever it was, they'd been close. And the hum of secrets turned sharp, cutting deep. Dylan's shirt hung loose, half on, his hand gripping mine as we stared through the fogged windshield, the echo of that crack, glass under tires, lingering. The headlights had vanished into the storm, but my pulse wouldn't settle, a chill creeping up my spine. "Who was that?" I whispered, fumbling my jeans closed. Dylan's jaw tightened, scanning the dark lot. "No idea," he said low, straightening his shirt. "Maybe nothing, teens, probably." But his grip on my hand was tense, betraying his calm. I slid off his lap, the seat creaking, smoothing my hair, his warmth still on me despite the cold seeping in. "They saw us," I said, voice trembling, the weight hitting hard, bare skin, tangled limbs, a secret too loud. He turned, hazel eyes steady, brushing hair from my face. "If they did, they're gone." His voice was firm, soothing, but my stomach churned, picturing Tom's truck, Pam's smirk, anyone who might have passed. I nodded, swallowing, and he started the engine, the rumble pulling us back to reality. "Let's go," he said, soft, and I leaned against the window, rain streaking the glass, the factory fading as we drove off. The drive home was quiet, the storm heavier, wipers slashing through the blur. Dylan's hand rested on my thigh, warm through my jeans, a quiet anchor, but my mind spun his lips on my neck, the truck rocking, that shadow in the dark. Back at the house, lights glowed faintly, Tom's snores drifting from the couch as we slipped inside. Dylan dropped his keys, the clink sharp in the hush, and I froze, waiting for Tom to stir. He didn't, just shifted, oblivious, his sling loose. I exhaled, shaky, and Dylan's hand brushed my back, guiding me upstairs, his touch a promise we couldn't speak. In my room, the device glinted on the nightstand, a silent witness to the chaos I'd unleashed. Dylan followed, door clicking shut, and I turned, meeting his gaze, dark, open. "Claire," he started, stepping close, but I raised a hand, voice unsteady. "We can't keep doing this here." He nodded, slow, but closed the gap, fingers tracing my jaw. "Then we won't," he murmured, lips brushing mine, soft, a question. I answered with my hands, pulling him in, the kiss deepening as we sank onto the bed, quieter now, careful. The springs muffled by the rain, his touch slower, savoring. It was less wild, more real, his hands under my shirt, my legs wrapping him, a secret woven into the dark. Morning broke wet and gray, the house heavy with damp. Tom was up, banging pans, his gruff voice griping about coffee. I slipped down, hair wet from a quick shower, Dylan's scent gone but the ache remaining. He came in behind, grabbing juice, his eyes flicking to me warm, knowing over the glass. "Garage today," Tom said, oblivious, sipping his mug. "Arms fine." I nodded, stirring oatmeal, hands unsteady, the truck's memory burning. Dylan lingered, casual, his foot nudging mine under the table, a spark I couldn't dodge. Midday, Tom left, truck rumbling off, and the house emptied, leaving me and Dylan in its restless quiet. I was wiping counters when he came up behind, arms sliding around my waist, lips grazing my neck. "Missed you," he whispered, and I turned, melting into him, the kiss hungry, urgent. We stumbled to the couch, clothes peeling off slow. His shirt, my jeans skin on skin, the hum building, drowning the rain. Then the doorbell rang, sharp, yanking us apart. I cursed, grabbing my shirt, Dylan pulling on his jeans as I checked, Pam, rain-soaked, holding a box. "Tom forgot this," she said when I opened the door, her eyes narrowing past me. Dylan lounged on the couch, too casual, shirt off. "Hey, Pam," he said, voice smooth, but her smirk sharpened. "Busy day?" she asked, handing me the box, tools heavy, and I stammered, "Just tidying." She lingered, gaze flicking between us, then nodded, slow. "Tell Tom I stopped by," she said, turning away, her look lingering, knowing, cold. I shut the door, heart pounding, and Dylan stood, close again. "She saw nothing," he said, but I shook my head, the box shaking in my grip. She saw enough. The kitchen air was thick. Pam's footsteps fading into the rain, her sharp look. A blade of suspicion cutting through me. The box of Tom's tools trembled in my hands, its weight nothing compared to the dread twisting my gut. Dylan stood behind, bare-chested, jeans low, his grin fading as he saw my face. "She didn't see anything," he repeated, stepping close, his hand on my arm, warm and steady. I shook my head, setting the box down with a thud. "She saw enough," I muttered, voice tight, imagining her smirk turning darker when she reached Tom. He moved closer, his warmth cutting the chill from the storm, and turned me to face him. "Claire," he said, low, lifting my chin, "we're okay." His eyes, hazel, deep, unshaken, held mine, and I wanted to believe him, to fall back into the bubble of the truck, the couch, everywhere we shouldn't. But Pam's shadow lingered, a crack in our fragile glass. I exhaled, unsteady, and his lips brushed mine, soft, pulling me in despite the alarms. "Dylan," I whispered, half protest, but my hands slid up his chest, feeling the pulse beneath, and he deepened the kiss, hungry, the hum sparking again. We stumbled to the couch, the rain a steady drum, muffling the world as his hands lifted my shirt slow, deliberate, his touch burning my ribs, my spine. I tugged at his jeans, the zipper rough, and he groaned, pressing me down, the cushions sinking. It was quieter, less frantic, his lips on my jaw, collarbone, every move a tether pulling me deeper. My legs wrapped him, his jeans rough against my thighs, and I arched into him, the hum drowning Pam, Tom, everything but this wild, reckless thing we'd unleashed. "You're mine," he murmured against my neck, voice rough, and I nodded, breathless, clinging, the truth sinking in sharp and sweet. Hours blurred, the rain easing to drip, the house settling as we lay tangled, skin damp, breath slowing. His arm draped over me, heavy, warm, and I traced his chest, memorizing him, the quiet, fragile. "What now?" I whispered, the question escaping. He propped up on an elbow, grin lazy but edged. "We keep going," he said, brushing hair from my face, his thumb lingering on my lips. "Tom doesn't need to know." My chest tightened. Tom, snoring downstairs, oblivious at the garage. But Dylan's certainty pulled me back, a lifeline I held too tight. Evening crept in, shadows stretching across the floor. I showered, hot water washing his scent but not the ache, and dressed slow, jeans and a sweater, hands unsteady. Dylan was in the kitchen, cooking, eggs sizzling, toast browning, a domestic scene that twisted something in me, sharp and odd. "Figured you'd be hungry," he said, glancing over, his smile easy, and I nodded, sitting, the normalcy surreal after the factory, the couch, the secrets piling up. We ate quietly, his foot nudging mine under the table, a spark flaring, and I laughed, soft, caught in his pull. Then headlights swept the drive, Tom's truck, early, gravel crunching loud. My fork froze, Dylan's eyes snapping to mine, tension flickering. "Damn," I hissed, standing, but he stayed calm, clearing plates. Tom barged in, sling gone, grease on his hands, face hard. "Pam stopped by the shop," he said, dropping his keys, voice rougher than usual. My stomach plummeted, and Dylan paused, casual but alert. "Yeah," I managed, throat dry, and Tom's eyes narrowed, flicking between us. "Said she dropped something off, seemed off about it." He stepped closer, the air thickening, and I forced a shrug, too quick. "Just tools. No big deal." He grunted but didn't drop it, his gaze lingering on Dylan, shirtless, jeans low, then back to me. "You two been here all day?" The question hung, heavy, and I nodded, too fast, pulse hammering. "Yeah, just chilling," Dylan said, smooth,